Jeffery Ames is the Director of Choral Activities at Belmont University. He previously taught at Baylor University and in a couple of high schools. As a choral clinician, Dr. Ames has been a clinician with a lot of high schools and middle school choirs, including National ACDA and MENC, that's the Music Educators National Conference, their former title. He's performed and guest conducted in the countries of Costa Rica, Germany, Italy, Latvia, Estonia, South Korea, the Republic of Ghana, lots of traveling. He's an accomplished accompanist, and he's performed and collaborated with well-known conductors such as Andre Thomas, Joe Michael Scheibe, Lynn Gackel, and Ton Armstrong. Additionally, he's collaborated with a bunch of well-known celebrities such as Trisha Yearwood, Laura Bell Bundy, CeCe Winans, Connie Smith, Ricky Skaggs and the Whites, mezzo-soprano Denise Graves, Michael W. Smith, Kathy Mattea, Sheryl Crow, and wait for it, the Rolling Stones. Ooh. I guess living in Nashville has some perks. His compositions and arrangements are published with Cola Voce Music, Earth Songs, Santa Barbara Music Publishing, and Walton Music Corporation. Jeffery received his PhD from FSU, where his major professor was Andre Thomas. He was the first recipient of the National ACDA James Mulholland Choral Music Fellowship and the first African-American to represent the United States in the ACDA International Conductor Exchange Program. He lives in Nashville with his lovely wife and 3 children. And before we get started with our conversation, you know, I really think that one of the best ways to get to know somebody is to sing with them. Don't you agree?
Yes.
And since we've made this great recording, well, semi-great.
Tshotsholoza, Tshotsholoza, hey when you yabalega, hey kule, Tshotsholoza, hey kule, Tshotsholoza, hey kule,
Okay.
Yay!
So Jeffery, why don't you start us off by giving us a little bit of your background. Tell us about your musical journey.
Sure. I have to share this. That's the first time
I've ever done that before. So it was just so cool to have that experience virtually, and so that was really cool. Again, it's my first time when we kind of moved into the pandemic mode last March. Everybody was kind of feeling, what are we going to do? How are things going to pan out? And um, when we had to shift to total online learning, it was challenging. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I want to do a virtual choir thing. That's going to take a lot of energy I really don't feel like I have right now. And I'm not feeling it. And I told my kids that. My students just like, yeah, I'm just not feeling it. And it was too great of a learning curve for me. Um, and it was hard enough trying to put other performance-based classes in a virtual format, like conducting. Okay, all right, so all right, let's get a Zoom. Let's see if we can FaceTime. Let's see if we can use Flipgrid. And it was just really overwhelming. So that the Tshotsholoza was the very first time I ever did anything virtually like that. So that was cool. So congratulations, Dolph. Congratulations. And to all the singers who participated. Yay! um, this semester, I will say that with the pandemic, we do have two selections that will be more of a virtual choir. And our other selections, we're actually doing a taping to be made public at a later date. So, which are what many other people are doing. So about me, I was born and raised in Virginia Beach. I grew up on the Chesapeake Bay, and so Virginia is my home. I still have a lot of family there. A few siblings still live there as well. And I went to school in the mountains of Virginia at James Madison University. So it's in Harrisonburg. I always say that I had the best of both worlds. I had the blue crabs in the summertime, and I had the snowy trails to hike upon in January and February. So I have a huge affinity for the water and also the woods. I think when I was a junior in high school, I knew that I wanted to be called Dr. Ames, and I also knew it wasn't going to be in a medical field. That wasn't going to be the case. But music has always just been a part of my life, and it's a part of my family's life as well. And they weren't professional musicians. I mean, they sang, well, my mother sang in church choir, and just being raised in the church with wonderful parents, and gave me kind of like a stable foundation. I remember waking up to music every single morning, well, at least 5 days a week. No, about six. No, about every day. Yeah, about 7 days a week, really. To back in the day, in the 70s, we had the huge Magnavox stereo set with the record player. That was a huge piece of furniture, and you were sure to put some pledge on that every single week. And I remember waking up to gospel music every single morning. My parents would get up, I guess, about a half hour, 45 minutes before they would wake me up. And just hearing that music was very comforting to me, and kind of truly made me feel like, oh yeah, this is home. This is a place where I'm safe and I'm secure. And then hearing the message of gospel music was something that continued to feed my soul, whether I knew it or not. So I grew up in the church, and at the age of 12, I started taking piano lessons. Long before then, I started playing things by ear. And I started playing in Sunday school, and then eventually was leading choirs and the organist at at a few churches. So that was my high school job. You know, I didn't have to work at Zaxby's or Sonic or Burger King. You know, I was basically a church musician. And I think I remember there was one Sunday a month that I had off. The rest I was employed at different churches within the African American church community. There are usually several different choirs, and so oftentimes those several different choirs had different choir directors and organists and pianists. So I was at my home church on first Sundays, and I went to a neighboring church on second Sundays. I was across town, well, actually in a different city that was about 15, 20 minutes away on third Sunday. And I think fourth Sunday is like, okay, yeah, I'm home, yay. So I really got a chance to just worship. Let's see, in high school, I was a big band kid, played saxophone, but I always auditioned for the musical when beginning my freshman year. So my junior year is when I kind of did both. I did choir and band and enjoyed it, loved it. Was an all-stater Virginia Honors Choir. That was so cool. And the conductor for that year, Virginia Honors Choir is all seniors. So the conductor in '86 was at the time, Colonel Craig Jessup, who was the conductor of the Air Force Singing Sergeants. And he is one of the reasons why I'm a choral director today. He just really inspired me beyond belief. And it's like, I think I can do this for the rest of my life. So I went to JMU and started off as a voice major and decided, oh, I want to be a piano major. Oh, I want to be a voice major. Oh, I want to be a piano major. I went back and forth. It's like, well, what is it this year, Jeff? I don't know. I still need to think about that. So I continued studying piano and continued studying voice. And my junior year, our Department of Music was approved to have a degree in piano accompanying, which is today known as collaborative piano. So when I looked at the degree requirements, it was 80% done. So it's like, I would be remiss if I didn't stay and complete the second degree. And that's what I did. I stayed a fifth year, and I finished the piano requirements that I needed to take with academic classes. My very last semester, I did a half piano recital, hopped on a plane, went to do grad school auditions in piano accompanying, and came back and finished that semester with a full collaborative piano recital. And that was so much fun. And I loved my undergraduate days. And I felt like, I still feel that if I could go back and do them, I would. It was just that much fun, except the sophomore year. I wanted to quit. So I think if we can bypass the sophomore year, I would be cool. Went on to Florida State to do my master's, started in collaborative piano or piano accompanying. The spring break of my first year in grad school, I realized I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And I really felt that God was leading me to choral music education. So that's what I did. I got my licensure and took all the classes that I needed to obtain a teaching certificate, and ended up staying an extra year again, and came out with a master's in music ed. From there, I had a wonderful teaching career, 7 years in high school. And after that, the longest stint of my teaching career, high school teaching career, was in Tallahassee. So when it was time to go back to school, I said, I'm not picking up to leave to go somewhere to pick up and leave again in 3 years. So I have a perfectly great school right here. And at the time, I was just recently, no, not recently, I got married in '98. So, and at that time, it was 2002. So I was ready to go back to school, and we did the journey, had the journey, yay. Last year school, had our first daughter, and then from there we went to Texas. So I was a Texan for 3 years at Baylor University. A wonderful start to my collegiate teaching career. Many dear friends still there, both professionally and just on a personal level. And and after 3 years, a door opened up for me at Belmont, and I walked on through the door, and I've been here. This is year number 12. So, and this is the final spot for me. So, and believe it or not, I'm already counting the years to retirement. But that's not a bad thing. I'm just thinking, oh boy, many people of my classmates who are the same age in their early 50s, I'm not. It's not odd to be thinking about these things right now. So many of my colleagues and classmates are thinking the same thing. But Belmont is a wonderful place to be. I love my students. I love teaching. I love giving to them. They love giving back to me. And it's truly a wonderful experience. And I'm glad that I'm planted here in this place in order to make a difference and to spread my love for music and just my love for life. I am not a formally trained composer at all. And when I compose music, it comes straight from the heart. I do feel that it is divinely inspired. And so it's my composing method is very unorthodox to many other choral composers. So the music comes first. It does. The music comes first, and then I'm led to a text to fit to the music, which is, like I said, unorthodox because most people start with the text. Here's the text I'm going to set. This text is so inspirational to me, and here I go. And that's just not it. And it hasn't worked that way. When it's needed to work that way, oh boy, you talk about hard. Oh gosh, it's so challenging. I was like, why did I say I want to do this? But I really do feel like the text and the lyrics are special, and fit well with the music that I have written. So it's my path it's been very different. So but that's okay, because now it's like everybody's path is different. So that's a wonderful thing that I get to share with my students as well.
When I listen to your works, I hear a lot of versatility in it. There's a photographer that I know who's named Rick Salmon. He says he specializes in not specializing, and I hear that same kind of versatility in your music, because I know you write original works that stem from the tradition of Western European art music, and you write choral fanfares. You've written arranged spirituals and gospel songs from the African American tradition, and you've arranged songs from several African countries. I'm wondering if you find it a challenge when you write such a diverse kind of music to finding your own voice.
No, I don't find it a challenge because I really think that if it's a non-idiomatic piece of music that's not a Black tradition, like a gospel piece, concert gospel or concert spiritual, and more of a Western tradition composition, I think you're going to be able to tell that, oh, this sounds like a Jeffery Ames piece. And it's not so much that every piece sounds the same, but there are, I think, for some composers, it's a certain compositional technique that they use that's recognizable. For instance, there is a certain, I would say, good chocolate feel good, gives you chills moment in some music of Moses Hogan that you're like, oh yeah, that's Moses Hogan. Or there is a cluster chord that you say, ooh, Whitaker. Or there is a certain voicing that's used that you're saying, oh, that sounds like Stroop. And I think with me, my identity is heart. And I think that's who I am. I'm always real. Uh, Sometimes it's not the best thing, but it's honest. And I think in my music, you honestly feel what I'm feeling in my heart. If it's pain, if it's remorse, then you're gonna feel it. If it's I'm just happy and can celebrate, then you can feel that in a concert gospel piece like "Let Everything That Have Breath," and the pain and remorse, or and the maybe despair, sometimes empathy, in the my arrangement of "I've Been in the Storm So Long" that you sent to me, Tom, and sometimes well, I would say most of the times the compositions have a story, or they have a reason, or they have an impetus, um, and I think you're able to feel that in my music. So I don't think it's challenging. I kind of write whatever's on my heart and whatever feels good at the moment. And sometimes it feel good now, and then 6 weeks later it doesn't feel anything. So and I think that's the beautiful thing, that I'm not a full-time composer where I have to crank out piece after piece after piece. And there are some people who, make their living as composers. And I'm glad that I have teaching as my main gig, and just kind of composing is one of my side hustles. So.
Jeffrey, I'm going to ask, when you are composing, just from the mechanics of it, are you a pen to paper or pencil to paper guy, or are you a technology guy? What do you do to actually get your music down?
I'm a pencil to paper person. I like sitting at the piano and putting my hands on the keys, and because at times that's very inspirational to me as well. I think of orchestral instruments a lot when I'm composing, and being a pianist, many of my pieces are very pianistic, and but they're pianistic where it's I would say along the lines of Brahms, maybe, compared to Chopin, because my fingers never moved well with Chopin. They never moved well with Mozart. They never moved well with Bach. So you're really not going to hear that kind of accompaniments in my music, but you're going to hear some heart, like some like Brahms. So I like sitting at the piano, putting my hands on the keys, and pencil to paper, and then I go back to the computer, and I still consider myself a novice whenever I'm entering music using the music software. So I'm hoping that will change. I'm hoping that will change within the next year. Yeah.
Well, you sure write some great accompaniments.
Oh, thank you.
Speaking of accompaniments, do you ever go back to the saxophone, and have you picked that up? Okay. No.
Oh, not at all.
No.
Not at all. So I think the last time I played saxophone was my freshman year at JMU, playing in the marching band. That was it.
Well, I actually have so many questions, but I don't want to hog this. I'm Chris. I'm not Charles. Charles is my husband. I don't know how I got on his account, and I grew up in Maryland, sailing on the Chesapeake Bay, actually. So maybe we ran into each other sometime. I'd love to hear about the Rolling Stones, but I'm really more interested in hearing about, so you start with the music always first. How do you find the text after you just do you have a method, or do you?
Sometimes, sometimes it just comes, or and that's not to say that whenever I can compose and the music comes first, that there aren't any lyrics or there isn't a text that's rolling around on my noodle. Um, and what I will do is I'll, even in my manuscript, I'll, pencil in, well, here's a line that could work in this place. But oftentimes I have a theme. For instance, the my most recent piece. Oh, I have one here. Live long and prosper. So, where do you think the inspiration for this piece came from? Exactly. When Leonard Nimoy passed away, and that was such a huge part of of not everybody, but of many people's lives. And it's like, oh my gosh. And then just delving into his life a little bit more, reading more about his upbringing, and knowing that live long and prosper is a Yiddish blessing. It really is. And I had no idea. And especially the sign that Nicole did so well that I can't do well. Oh, that's not bad. There you go. There you go. Yeah. And it's, that was just part of a Yiddish blessing. I'm like, oh my gosh, this man, he was really, really deep. And without the general public knowing, he was blessing everybody all over the place. And I was like, wow. So I was commissioned to compose a work for my former dean on her retirement. She had been at Belmont for 35 years, Cynthia Curtis. And I was like, it was around the time, I think Leonard Nimoy may have passed a year earlier, or 8 to 12 months earlier. And I'm thinking, oh, that's great. Live long and prosper. That's a wonderful blessing for everybody, and then the music came. And it's kind of funny because the music that came, the melody that came, is you'll find that same motive in Remembrance. So do re mi, okay. Lux eterna, and here, there is music all around us. And when I first started writing, when I first wrote In Remembrance, Andre Thomas said, oh, that's from Fiddler on the Roof. Do you love me? It's like, oh, okay. I wasn't thinking of Fiddler at the moment, but it's a I guess it's a popular motive that that I have used, I guess, in 2 pieces now. So oftentimes the text will kind of come, or if it's something that say if it's a sacred work, then I'll pray and I'll meditate and I'll ask God, what should I use here, or what should I say? And if it's something secular, then I may go to a certain poet or look for public domain on a certain subject matter and see what will fit. Oh, this will fit. Oh, this kind of fits, and I can make this work. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be pretty tough to come up with a 4-note motive that's never been used.
True.
I was curious about the aha moment behind your switching to choral music. Do you have a particular story that you remember?
Oh, gosh. So, I feel like my son. So, my first year in grad school, around spring break, I caught the chicken pox. So I missed 10 days of school. And it was a time that was, of course, very painful. And, I felt like, oh my gosh, I want my mommy. And it's like, oh, mommy said, you want me to come? It's like, no, I'll be okay. But it was a time of reflection. It really was. And I'm like, you're basically pretty immobilized. It hurts to move. And so I was just thinking there, and it was just a lot of time to think and to pray. And it's like, okay, I'm not saying this is a sign, but I knew that it just gave me an opportunity to be still. And I said, okay, so I'm not totally happy sitting in the practice room 6-7 hours a day. God, what do you want me to do? And he said, I want you to teach. I said, okay. So as soon as I was well and recovered, I just realized, just made that declaration that, I'm switching over to choral music education, and I'll still continue to study piano and try to keep my chops up. But I think that's the direction I want to go. And I'm so happy that I did. So that was my aha moment, chickenpox.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
When did you start composing? It sounds like you had kind of a long, gradual, natural pathway into music, but was composing something you always had ideas about or made notes about, or did it just come upon you?
I was given an opportunity. I always felt like I had a very good ear. I at perfect pitch, and in the Black church, typically how we taught music was, what's on the radio. That's great right now. Oh, I think my choir can do that. So what many musicians did was, as we listened, most of the times we would catch the recording using a tape recorder when it came on the radio. You remember doing that anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, there's a song, get it. And you push the two buttons to play and to record and to record on a cassette tape. And then you kind of, after you captured that recording, you kind of went back and it's like, all right, you wrote down basically the pitches. It was always tertiary harmony, all right, soprano, alto, tenor. And so it was like, here's the line of text, and it'd be like D, 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 C, D, D, and then the next one B flat, B flat, B flat, A's, B flat, and it just worked that way. So I think that was my start to composing, was basically transcribing in a non-theoretical way, and teaching those parts in the in choir rehearsal. And it wasn't until I had an opportunity during a summer month. I think it was the summer of 1989, or may have been, I can't remember. During my summers while an undergraduate, I would be a performer at Busch Gardens in Williamsburg. So it was back in the day when they had live entertainment. So it was a great thing. But one year I was a part of what was called the San Marco Serenaders. So after the Italian opera show would perform, the Serenaders would come out. It's a quartet, and we would go out and just kind of sing stuff from the 50s, some stuff from Disney, some and just other quartet pieces that worked well. And so I started doing a little arranging with for the group that I was in, and that was cool. And then when I was teaching high school, I started doing some arranging for the small mixed ensemble that I had, and so it just kind of grew. And I think my my last year teaching high school, I and my the associate director we kind of wrote a piece together, which was Canticle of Mary, which is for treble voices. And that became the very first published piece. And then from there, it kind of took off. So I never really had in my mind that I was going to be a composer or even compose on the side. It's just something that I kind of walked into.
Jeffrey, when you hear a choir perform your music, I guess, how does it make you feel? Are you cringing, or are you going, yay, they're singing my song? Or, you know.
I'm always celebrating what they do. Always celebrating what they do, because I think it would be so easy to be critical instead of celebrating. And that's what I do. I just celebrate, you know, what they have done, and just always love it. Mm-hmm.
Good.
I have a question along those lines. With your international experience and your international travel, how do you balance stylistically maybe cultural things or accents or different things that the singers might bring from their culture if they're performing your songs or American songs? How much do you try to Americanize the pieces that they're singing versus let them sing it with their style?
It's just like international choirs singing my music.
Your music, yeah, in particular, or just any other American pieces or international pieces, I guess.
I think one of the greatest challenges is that I've had. Well, no, there have been a couple of challenges. I think the most recent was working with Italian singers, because for those Italians who speak English, it is more of a British English. So take, for instance, Versatility Paul's "The Word Was God." Okay, in the beginning was a word. We would say word, but they say word.
Wood of gold.
Wood was with gold, and the word was gold, and tried to think, okay, more Americanized, because God is an R vowel. So they were going around, oh, you know, they would just walk up to me and go, oh, and it's like, yeah, we have more R vowels, and especially with the word God, and so that's always kind of amusing at times. And the other place has been in South Korea. It was the choirs that I were working with were performing "Let Everything That Have Breath," praise the Lord. Okay, and it's, you know, that TH sound is really not prominent in many languages. I mean, TH isn't in German, TH isn't in Italian. So when you get to America, it's hard to say breath with the TH. So I had to think of, I had to ask one of the bilingual choir members, how do I get the sound duh, duh, okay? And it was it was closer to have the singers say the word breath instead of breath, because the TH wasn't there. And I think if I did make that change and that choir were to come to the United States to sing what they sang, it may have sounded, I would just say, offensive. A part of the anatomy. Right. That's what was coming out. I'm sorry to say that, but that was the truth. And I said, oh my gosh, we can't do this. I did. I said, we can't do this. So I said, I have to find something to camouflage this. That's not how we would pronounce it in the United States, but I have to have it, you know, have to make a change. And I would say the other thing that's been very, very interesting is hearing my music, that piece in particular, translated and performed in Korean. That was awesome. It really was, because the style was still there, and the sense of celebration and the churchiness of that piece, as found within the Black church, was still there, even though they were singing in Korean. So that was cool.
Your heart. They found your heart in that
Yeah,
song.
sure. Thank you. Yes.
Hey, Dr. Ames, I have a couple of questions.
Mhm.
First of all, thank you for not quitting your sophomore year. We're all so very happy that you did not make that decision. And your music is definitely divine inspired. I can't sit still when we sing Tshotsholoza. It is
Oh,
literally
good.
impossible. In preparing for that, I actually found the Belmont University performance you have on YouTube. I think
Mhm.
Tom sent it to us. I've had a lot of fun with that recording. I just have to say.
Good.
But in talking about your history and your background and how music as you grew up was just such a place of safety and joy, and it is for so many of us in these really troubled times. And as you talk about what comes out of you musically when you're composing, and that it's what's in your heart, and how you were led to be an educator, and your role being so powerful and so impactful to so many people. I guess I'm really curious from your perspective, what I guess are the most important two or three things, or maybe it's one thing that you want as an educator and as a minister, quite frankly, of sorts, to impart on your students. And as an educator, what is your greatest joy about teaching? Sorry for all the questions. But
I think what I want to impart upon my students is for them to be natural, to share who they are, for them for not to be afraid to share their heart. If they are passionate about something, then show your passion. If you are quirky in a sense about something, if you geek out over theory, then show your geekiness over theory. And if you are um, more of an introvert, which I really am, um, then it's okay to let people know that I'm okay, I'm cool. And the thing about it is that it takes everyone, it takes all of those different qualities to make your ensemble, or to make your family. And because we all have family members that are like, okay, they're cool by themselves, or just give them some time, or we have that uncle that's like, oh Lord, oh, here they go again. It's every there's dysfunction everywhere, and that's how um, I I kind of relate to my students, and letting them know that it's okay to have all of these differences, because basically that is what makes your family. So as the future music educators go out and choral directors go out, they need to be able to let their students know that here's a safe place. You can be who you are, whatever you want to be. You learn to be a good listener, you learn to be respectful, and you learn to be inclusive, really, because we all need each other. And I tell my students this all the time. It's like, I can't do what I love to do without you. And there's uh, reciprocity there in love. It's like, well, I love you too, no thanks. Well, yeah, that's true, but it's the thing that we do together, and that's the most important part. Is that there's always a tether between me as a teacher and as a conductor and my students, and that we are working this thing together. We are making those musical phrases together, and it's not a dictation. I'm not a dictator type of relationship, but it's something that we all work together and we all feel together. Now, I will tell you that has been so hard within COVID. So hard. And some of you music educators, you know this, and that our personal mandate at Belmont is 12 feet apart. And I mean, so you're like, who's up there? I can't see because the lighting is awful. But hey, I'm glad we have a space that's big enough to have everybody. But it's still, it took, I would say, we started school, in-person school, right after Labor Day. And it took, I would say, maybe about 2 months for before we could have a real sense of belonging and a great level of comfort to just sing, because everything has been so different and I can't hear anybody else my part. And oh my gosh, I realize how timid of a singer I am, or I realize how much I rely on somebody else for leadership. And one thing that COVID has taught us is that building that confidence. So that's something that makes me happy, when they have had to learn a lesson in a most challenging way. It seems like it becomes even more endearing or important to them. And so that's been a joy that's been one joy that I've seen my students learn this semester. And I think for other music educators as well, we realized that the challenges that we were facing COVID weren't all bad. I think there are some things that I'll carry over once the pandemic is over. You know, it's like, let's go back to this. And the last thing I'll say is that we know the cliche, absence makes the heart fonder. Is that right? And where you couldn't be a group of 50 or 60 singers close together, you know, shoulder to shoulder, and you're spread out, you realize, oh boy, you know, when we are able to fully learn our music and we're comfortable, it's a real joy, because we've been able to come together. We've been apart, we've been absent from each other. We've been online doing sectionals, and I haven't heard the bass voices in 2 weeks. And so when you are able to come together, it's very, very special.
I'd like to know, what would you impart to a choir or a chorus who is going to learn one of your pieces of music? What advice would you give as the choral members are working through a piece of music to bring it to life, and to bring your vision forward?
Sure. What I always, one of the, I would say 3/4 of the way through a piece, where they almost have all the notes and we're kind of working on some memory, is that I ask my choristers, what does it mean to you? How does this line relate to you personally? I require them all to have some type of retrospect. They need to know and to be able to dictate how they make the music personal to their lives. It could be, I've had a bout with sickness, and I was healed, or I lost a loved one, or I'm really, really angry, and this makes me feel better, or I really feel I can really relate to this section of the music because it's just, and that's how I feel sometimes. And so that's very, very important to me. And that's what I always require My choristers, or if I'm guest conducting somewhere, what does it mean to you? And sometimes I will even ask one of my students, hey, can you take this piece and just share some words about it? And can you write a meditation or a devotional about it? And of course, it doesn't always have to be something sacred in nature. You know, it can be whatever. And you actually find that time students are able to open up. And I have found something like over the past 10 years that our males have really blossomed. They'll come up and say, they will speak, they will share. I'm like, yeah, guys, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's great that you're sharing. And it gives so much more promise and hope to the entire ensemble, because they'll say, oh, that's what so and so was thinking. Well, I had no idea that they felt that way. Maybe I should just kind of say, hey, send them a text message, say, hey, just thinking about you. You'll never know. You really never know unless you go through that exercise. One story that I will share this semester, as our choir was forming and coming together for the first time, you know how your ensembles will sound different from year to year. Sometimes you're able to have a great foundation. It's like, oh yes, the bass is going to be really solid next year. And then this year, it's like, okay, I got my choir. And then it's like, well, who's not coming back to school? Oh, okay. So I'm losing about 12 people. We're going to see how this works. And it's actually working out beautifully. And when the choir, when they sang, you can just listen and hear certain qualities. I was like, oh my gosh, I think it's time to do a piece of early music. And I think it's time to do some Palestrina or some Victoria. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And let's stick with what I have. And one piece that I did have was the Lamentations of Jeremiah by Struth. So it's Jeremiah saying, oh, ye people, look to see if there's any sorrow like unto my sorrow. I mean, just really, 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 it just hurts so badly. And it's just very forceful. Oh, for some mystery. And it's just like, oh my gosh, this is straight up in your face. And I was like, without being political, but being a Black man, I'm pretty ticked and pissed about what's happened in our country. And I'm going to share how I feel. So that was one part of the equation. And then a conducting student was working on the Victoria Ovos on this, which is the same text. And such a totally different feel. And it's more sorrowful, it's more mournful. And I said, well, this is the early music piece that this choir will sing so beautifully. And they do. So I paired the two pieces together, and it's making a tremendous impact upon their performance, because I know that I have imparted my biases upon them, okay? And whether you believe my biases or not, we still have a pandemic that we're fighting against. You still have something else in your life that you want people to know, oh, just look at how mournful, how sorrowful I feel right now. We all can relate to that. And things just feel awful. And then sometimes when those things feel awful, they make you mad as hell, excuse me. But they do. And so it's being true to yourself and allowing your students or allowing your choir to be true to themselves. Everything isn't not sugar-coated and pansy. Some things are just awful. And the beauty of music is that we have it all. We have the beautiful stuff and we have the ugly stuff.
I wanted to ask a question. I'm interested to know what you like to listen to when you're not teaching or not composing. What brings you joy to listen to?
Well, recently it has been a graduate student's thesis, which is the incorporation of choral music in video game music. So I was like, ooh, I love this writing. Ooh, okay, Warcraft, all right. Jeremy Soule as a composer. What else is there? Zelda, and I mean, it's like, what else can I find on YouTube? What else can I play? And sometimes it's the same piece that's looping over and over, but I'm like, oh my gosh, in a way that sounds like Ravel, in a way that sounds like Rachmaninoff, and it's soothing. So that's my big thing right now. It's like video game music. And the other thing is I'll listen to traditional jazz, I'll listen to gospel, and sometimes just Christmas music. So I'm serious. It could be July and I'm listening to Christmas music. But it's funny, I haven't listened to any Christmas music yet. Yet there are Christmas trees up in people's houses all in my neighborhood. But I can understand that because it's like, I've had one friend said, well, I might as well come home to something that really makes you smile. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. So I'm listening to a lot of different things, but for right now, it's kind of video game music, which is cool.
I wanted to say that I liked jazz a lot too, and gospel. What's been your favorite opportunity you had going through school?
Let's see. I've had many great opportunities. I can say that as an undergraduate, that opportunity was driving about 45 minutes away from Harrisonburg. It's a city called Waynesboro, Virginia. And at the former music director at First Presbyterian in Waynesboro, his name is Ed Zimmerman, and he was the organist. And it was a beautiful church that the organ was in, was kind of like the focal point of the room. It kind of reminded me of a Disney castle. It just kind of, it didn't sit in the middle of the sanctuary, but I think it was, when you just walked in, it's like the organ was there. And I was blessed to sing with, be hired to sing with Ed as a section leader for Christmas and Easter for 3 years. And that was always a highlight. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. I will say as a graduate student, being kind of Dr. Thomas's right-hand man was pretty cool and has afforded me some opportunities that I had. I think it was my very last semester, and during my doctorate, he was granted a sabbatical, so I got to prepare the chamber choir for Anton Armstrong. So that was really cool.
Nice.
And I think since I've been a conductor on the collegiate level, God has just really blessed me with so many opportunities, like working with the Rolling Stones, which is cool, and and being here in Nashville. And when I think word just gets out that we have a good product at Belmont, and we're pretty versatile. That whenever I people need a choir, it's like, hey, call Jeffrey at Belmont, which is, like I said, it's a real blessing. And so I've had students to sing with the tenors, with Denise Graves and CeCe Winans and Michael W. Smith. And most recently, we performed with Kane Brown, country music artist, on the this year's ACM Awards. Yes, ACMAs. And so, that was cool. So there are so many opportunities that that God has blessed me with, that I'm very grateful for, that I get to go out and share my life and share my heart, and just kind of leave a piece of me wherever that place is, and then I come back here with a piece of them as well. So
That's wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One of the photos that you shared with me, Jeff, was it looked like a selfie with you and a whole bunch of kids behind you. Was that in Ghana?
It may have been. Were they little kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in Ghana. In May of 2019, Chorale traveled to Ghana. We get to travel internationally every 4 years. And I was planning to go to Ghana in 2011, but in 2015, but Ebola broke out.
Mm.
So I said, okay, we're not going to Ghana not this year. So that's when I went to the Baltics. And then 2019, the plan was to go to South Korea, but the things were just a little rocky and dicey at the time. So I was like, okay, we're going to table South Korea and we're going to go to Ghana. And so it was the year to go to Ghana. And it was great because it was the 400th anniversary of the Atlantic slave trade. And the first slave ship that landed in Jamestown, Virginia, about 60 miles away from Virginia Beach in 1619. So it was a coming home, or coming back to returning home celebration that was in Ghana for that entire year. And so I didn't even think about that until I got there, and it's like, oh yes, my goodness. So that was great for my students to experience. And we got a chance to go to a remote village, and we were actually a part of a naming ceremony for a little infant. And so just to be immersed in that culture, and then a huge celebration afterwards, and lots of music and lots of dancing, and the kids, they were precious. They really were. And they were very intrigued by the Caucasians that traveled. And it's like, can I feel your hair? Can we, and it was great to see that type of openness and inclusivity, and seeing that, yeah, they're children. They're so innocent. Their minds are fresh, and their minds are beautiful.
Very cool. Anybody have any final questions for Dr. Ames before we let him go?
Just a quick one. I'm just wondering what role music will play in retirement for you. You have any specific plans?
No, I think hopefully I'll still get called for gigs, but like I said, we love the water, and so I think we're gonna be here, in Nashville part of the time, and then down at the water in Florida for part of the time. So, but I still hope to be guest conducting and serve as a clinician. So, so music will still play a big part.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your heart with us tonight.
Oh, you're welcome.
We sure appreciate it.
It was thrilling. What a surprise to have you sing with us. Wow.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you all so much.
Okay.
We had a good time.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jeff.
So
You're
much.
welcome.
Thank
All right.
you.
Good night, everybody.
Tshotsholoza,